Welcome to Dig Deep, the mining podcast. In this podcast, we go deep into mining news, hot topics, and live interviews with mining professionals and leading figures in the mining industry. Introducing your host, Rob Tyson, founder and director of Mining International and Mining International Executive, a leading global mining recruitment and headhunting agency.
Hi, mining community. Welcome back to another episode of Dig Deep, the mining podcast. And today's guest is a returning guest who appeared back in November 2023, which was episode 392. Ed Bowie, who's the CEO and director of Beowulf Mining, a listed junior miner with a diverse portfolio of development stage projects in iron ore, graphite, and gold and base metal projects across Sweden, Finland, and Kosovo. With an exploration geology background, Ed has over 20 years of experience in the natural resources sector, having worked both in corporate, advisory and fund management roles across a broad range of commodities and jurisdictions. Ed's on the podcast today to give us an update on the company, the projects they're working on, details around community engagement and what support they get from the EU and commodity price outlook. I want to give a shout out to our sponsors, Hawcroft, who are leaders in property risk management in the mining industry since 1992. They offer insurance risk surveys, construction risk reviews, and asset criticality assessments and more. Working across 600 sites globally, Hawcroft supports all areas of mining and mineral extraction. So if you're looking for any property and insurance risk management services, then please visit their website at www.hawcroft.com. And all the details are in the show notes. Ed, welcome to the podcast. How you doing?
Hi, Rob. Pleasure to be back, and I'm very well, thank you. And yourself?
Good to hear. Yeah, I'm good as well. I'm good for a Monday afternoon. So, wondered if you, obviously, as I mentioned, you were on the podcast 18 months ago. So I just wondered if you just give us, first of all, I suppose, give us an overview of Beowulf Mining. For those that didn't or hadn't listened to the previous episode, which obviously I do encourage you to go and listen to that episode after listening to this episode. So I just wanted to give us an overview of the company.
Absolutely. So Beowulf is a UK AIM listed and Sweden Spotlight listed company. About 70% of our registers in Sweden. We have two core assets. So we have Jokkmokk iron mines in northern Sweden, looking to develop the Kallak iron ore project, which is a very high, we can produce an extremely high grade, low impurity concentrate suitable for decarbonising the steel industry. So critical for the green transition in that respect. That is going through pre-feasibility study at the moment. In Finland, we have a business called Grafintec, and we are looking to develop a downstream processing facility to produce anode material to supply the lithium-ion battery sector. We also have one of Europe's largest flake graphite resources in eastern Finland, but the focus initially is just to develop the downstream processing. And we completed a pre-feasibility study in the last quarter there. So those are the two core assets. We have a bunch of exploration assets as well, including Vardar Minerals, which is focused on Kosovo, a very prospective but underexplored region. And we've got targets for precious metals, base metals, lithium, so plenty of exploration upside as well in the portfolio.
Starting off with some technical questions, what's been going on with the Kallak iron ore project in northern Sweden in recent months?
So, as I mentioned, we are progressing with the pre-feasibility study. So we have done a lot of technical work on Kallak. I guess critically, we did metallurgical test work during the course of last year, which demonstrated we can produce this extremely high-grade concentrate. It's a large project, so we've kind of de-risked it from a technical perspective. The next real issue or challenges are around logistics and permitting. So we've been working very hard with permitting, making sure that we've got all the baseline studies in order, and making sure that our community engagement is all properly aligned, so that we can take the local stakeholders with us on the journey. On the technical side of things, the most recent sort of innovation that we've come up with, it's both a technological innovation for the project, very positive economics we expect from this, but it's also good from an environmental and community perspective. So, as I mentioned, logistics is a key challenge. The mine is 43 kilometers from a railway. If we were going to use trucks, there would be a lot of disturbance of local communities and critically the reindeer herders in the area. So the solution that we've come up with is a slurry pipeline. So material will come out of the plant, go into the slurry, into the pipeline, and be pumped to the rail, where it will there be dewatered to the powder cake, loaded on the rail, and then can be railed out. And the water will be returned to the plant and put through the plant. So the advantage is the pipeline is buried, so it would be unseen, unheard, wouldn't impact local communities, no safety risks on the road with multiple trucks going in each direction, and no impact on reindeer herding. The other factor is it's extremely reliable and low cost. So we see it as a real win-win for both local communities from a permitting perspective, the reindeer herders, and for the project itself.
I suppose following on and continuing obviously with the Kallak project, what role do community engagement and indigenous rights play in Beowulf's development plans?
So I'd say they are absolutely front and central, critical, and none of the developments that we are taking forward with Kallak are done without full consideration of the impacts on local people. I think the pipeline that I've just mentioned is a really good example of this. So we consulted with local stakeholders. Transport was highlighted as a major challenge, and so we worked very hard to come up with the optimal solution to try and mitigate the impacts that would have. So I think that's one example, but across the board we're looking at ways that we can minimize any impacts that we will have and maximize the benefits for local stakeholders. Making sure that we have a license to operate from a social license to operate from our local communities is going to be key. And so, every sort of decision that we make, we try and consider it from the perspective of our local stakeholders as well as obviously from the business perspective.
Moving on to your Grafintec projects in Finland, just wondering if you can give us an update on that.
Absolutely. So we made a significant stride forward earlier this year. We completed the pre-feasibility study on the anode materials plant. The technical work we've done has demonstrated we can produce an extremely good high battery grade material, and the economics from that study were also extremely positive. So the phase one, which is producing 25,000 tons of anode material a year, that had an MPV of 924 million euros, so not far off €1 billion, and an IRR of 37%. We also considered a phase two expansion, which is a tripling in the throughput of the plant, and that gave an MPV north of €2 billion. So very valuable project, de-risked from a technical perspective, enjoyed a very positive period with the development there.
You recently completed financing. Just wonder if you can run us through the outcome of the recent financing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, I mean, we've been through some fairly volatile markets. President Trump putting tariffs in, taking them away, a lot of uncertainty in the market. So it was great that we managed to get our financing away. We raised £2.2 million. About just shy of £1 million of that was placed with institutional investors. So really good to get some solid institutions on the register for the first time. So I think that's been a key focus to build the register. We also got good support from our existing shareholders, retail shareholders, so very pleased with that. And board and management also contributed. So board and management's interest in the company is now just shy of 5%. So difficult markets, but great to get the financing away. And that means that we can keep moving forward, albeit relatively slowly, over the next 9 months or so.
Are you seeing any increased interest or obviously even support from the EU for domestic resource development? Obviously, especially given supply chain concerns across the region.
Well, I think supply chain and local domestic demand for raw materials is at the forefront of the news at the moment, and so absolutely we think the timing is absolutely right for our two projects, and being in Europe is also a real advantage there. The EU recently announced the first tranche of strategic projects for critical raw materials. We intend to apply for strategic project status with Grafintec, with the GAMP project, in the next window when that opens up, and that should open up additional sort of funding opportunities for the project. Beyond that, I mean, obviously, supply chain security is something that everybody is now talking about. Everybody's aware of the issues. Every week there is a new commodity that is highlighted as being of critical concern, typically because China dominates the market. The battery sector is no different. So graphite, 96% of graphite used in anode materials currently within Europe comes from China. So there's very little non-Chinese supply of anode material. So we intend to be a completely independent part of the supply chain, no dependence on China whatsoever, and we think that stands us in very good stead, and is going to be critical for the security of raw materials going forward.
With commodity prices or markets fluctuating, how do you view the outlook for iron ore, base metals, and obviously battery minerals?
Well, the iron ore price has actually held up reasonably well, despite fears that there's been a slowdown in demand from China. That's held up well. Our product is a premium product. It's direct reduction iron, DRI, and there is anticipated to be a significant deficit of DRI going forward, and an increasing deficit as the steel industry moves towards lower carbon emitting technologies, and particularly electric arc furnaces. So because there's going to be an increasing deficit in supply of DRI, we think the premiums that we will be able to command for our product will rise. And therefore, we're confident that even despite market fluctuations, our product is going to become increasingly valuable and differentiated in the market. With respect to the graphite, Grafintec, we're producing a very refined final product, very specialized product. So the actual market fluctuations of commodity prices will have less of an impact than on that product.
How would you assess the European mining market at the moment? Do you see there's particular areas for growth? I think from my perspective, I have seen things pick up over the sort of coming 6 months or so, more so than probably previous years. How do you view the mining industry within Europe?
Well, I agree that there is certainly a lot more discussion going on now about Europe taking responsibility for producing its own materials. There's no shortage of good projects within Europe, but there has been various reasons why projects haven't moved forward, and a lot of it comes down to NIMBYism, people not wanting a mine built in their backyard. We see this as actually a real opportunity. The permitting regime in Sweden, for example, is very, very robust, very rigorous, and therefore we have to comply with the highest standards anywhere in the world in terms of developing our mine. So we can produce a product that is high quality, and we believe we can do that from a mine that will have the lowest impact of mines anywhere in the world. and partly because of this rigorous permitting regime that exists. But also because within Europe, there's a lot of technology around sort of battery vehicles for battery mining fleets, battery operated mining fleets, reducing CO2 emissions. But other technologies, we flagged recently that we're looking at a non-nitrogen based explosive technology. Nitrates from explosives can cause a lot of pollution, and so it's becoming an increasing problem. Now we've signed a memorandum of understanding with a group called Hypex Bio. They're a Swedish group that have developed it's a hydrogen peroxide based explosive solution. So we will be working with them over the coming years to try and bring this technology forward. We think it may be another way that we can improve reduce any impacts that the project might have. So being in Europe, I think, has significant benefits. The debate is gaining momentum about mining in Europe. I think people appreciate that we can't just simply import materials and export the carbon dioxide and emissions and any environmental impacts to the third world. We have to take a bit more responsibility ourselves. So I think it is something that is changing.
And lastly, it obviously remains a challenging market. How do you see things evolving over the coming months, and what's that mean to Beowulf Mining?
Well, I think it's been a challenging market for a number of years now, and anybody that's been in the mining game for long enough knows that these markets are cyclical. They do turn around. We look at the large companies; they are struggling to replenish their high quality projects that they have. So, there will be further M&A going on in the mining sector. That will drive demand for the new development projects, and we should see an uplift in the valuations across the market. So I think at some point the market will change. I think the geopolitical backdrop is very positive at the moment. The awareness of the importance of raw materials and raw material supply chains is now everybody is aware of it. So I think there's a very there's a good, very positive sort of backdrop to the market, and particularly to our story. The green transition is something that is going to continue to be important. We see that I mentioned our iron ore project. Steel accounts for 7% of CO2 emissions globally, and the largest steel companies are looking to reduce the footprint by over 50% by 2050. Now that means introduction of a lot of electric arc furnaces. That means they need a lot of our DRI product to put into those electric arc furnaces. So I think the future is extremely bright.
Ed, really appreciate your time. Thank you for sharing your story, giving us an update on Beowulf Mining, and obviously an update on your projects and all things around obviously community relations. If our audience wants to follow the story or get regular updates from yourself, how can they go about doing that, and what social media platform channels are you on?
So we obviously have a website, which is beowulfmining.com, and we have an X and a LinkedIn profile, so information available there. We also have websites and LinkedIn profiles for our main subsidiaries, so Jokkmokk Iron and Grafintec. So plenty of information on those individual websites as well. So, but our website's probably the Beowulf website is probably the best place to start.
Yep, we'll include those in the show notes of Companies Podcast for easy access for all our listeners. Well, all the best for the year, and hope you can come on next year and give us an update on things, and obviously projects that you're involved in obviously would move along. So be more than happy for you to come on next year.
It would be a pleasure, and thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, no worries. Thank you for listening. Hope you enjoyed the episode. As always, appreciate your continued support. Please keep sharing these episodes far and wide. And what we're trying to do is educate not only the people within our mining industry, but people outside of our mining industry. I think we need to improve the branding of mining, and we can only do that through education. So I appreciate you sharing this episode far and wide. So thank you again, and until next time, happy mining.
Thank you for listening. Remember to reach out to Rob via the show notes, and be sure to subscribe and leave a review. Until next time, happy mining, helping each other to improve the mining industry.